These people shake walls. No microphones, no amplifiers, but you can hear them sing a half a mile away. Sacred Harp, arguably the oldest form of truly American music, is a once vibrant tradition that almost died out during the last few decades, despite the efforts of a handful of aging rural churches. But it's finally having a revival in America. And some of the new energy is coming from an unlikely place, young urbanites. Many of these fans aren't religious at all, but they're drawn to the tradition's lack of commercialism. It's a truly indie art form. Named after an 1844 hymn songbook published by B.F. White and E.J. King, Sacred Harp is a form of shape note singing, sung completely a cappella using just one instrument, the human voice. In this method, there are 4 syllables, fa, sol, la, and mi, each corresponding with a different shape, a triangle, oval, square, or diamond. The singers sit in 4 pew sections facing each other, tenor, alto, treble, and bass. At the beginning of a song, participants run through the tune once, pronouncing only the syllables. It sounds like gibberish at first, but it's helpful to practice the melody without having to worry about the words. When it's time for the lyrics, everyone remembers his or her own part. The strange sound couldn't survive out of context. Most of these voices would get booed off of American Idol in a second. Sacred Harp music was initially used in colonial New England singing schools as a way to teach students to sight read.
Sacred Harp singing kind of disappeared from maybe you could say a historical radar, just in part because of the people, the types of people who used to sing. And even still, that's true, I think, to some degree. It's not something that was done in the bigger churches, it's not something that tended to be done in cities, and it's not something that was really popular in a large scale throughout the country. It was brought down to the South and to the West, where people didn't have as many instruments and where people were more interested in this kind of older style of singing and the older style of harmonies.
The Western Massachusetts Sacred Harp Convention, held at the Northampton Center for the Arts, currently attracts more singers than any other convention in the world. They had more than 400 registered singers just this year. Perhaps Sacred Harp is catching on quickly in the North because although the tradition disappeared for a time, that's where the style of singing was formed in the first place. Sacred Harp music has received more attention in the last few years than it has in the last half-century. It had its biggest moment in the spotlight in 2003 when the music appeared in the Civil War movie Cold Mountain. Then, in 2006, filmmaker Matt Hinton released a documentary about Sacred Harp called Awake My Soul.
I think I was around 6 when I led my first song. It was Rocky Road, 294. It felt like it always feels, just overwhelming, just very powerful. And you know, when you step to the Hall of Square and call your song, and they give the key, that, you know, even all these years after leading, I can still get goosebumps when that key is given and that class starts in singing.
The film now has an accompanying soundtrack packaged alongside a new compilation called Help Me to Sing. It features modern interpretations of Sacred Harp songs by artists like Tim Erickson, Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones, The Innocence Mission, Elvis Perkins, and Jim Lauderdale. Hinton recently started a bi-weekly singing at St. Paul's Presbyterian Church in Atlanta. Each meeting draws at least 30 singers, many of whom are students and young professionals new to the tradition.
There just wasn't anything like this in the city of Atlanta. Lots of singings all over the place throughout Georgia. But actually in the city itself, there just wasn't anything like this, and particularly for younger people.
Not all young singers are newcomers, though. Many children and grandchildren of lifelong singers participate in the tradition, especially in the South.
My dad's a singer, my grandfather was, his father, and my children sing. And then even on my mom's side, my great-great-grandfather wrote 3 tunes that are in one of the Sacred Harp books. So just really feel blessed to, be in a family where this has been an important part of our lives.
David Ivey runs a camp for Sacred Harp singing called Camp Fa Sol La. The camp attracts hundreds of people each year.
At our camp, we have folks really come from all over the country and even different countries. I guess last year we had about 30 states represented and some folks also from England here. And we have a really good mix of folks, of kids who are traditional, who come from traditional singing or have grown up around the singing, and young folks who really just maybe heard about it a couple of years ago or just starting out.
8-year-old Holly Mixon attended camp for the first time last year. She recently led a song at the Georgia State Sacred Harp Singing Convention. Like many singers, Holly is attracted not only by the music, but also by the people she meets.
I don't think I've ever met anyone who's mean or ugly in Sacred Harp, so, act ugly.
Some learn how to sing from their grandparents, some stumble upon Sacred Harp through their best friend or favorite band, and some hear about it in a music history class. But everyone's learning from the same book. This diverse new generation of singers has one thing in common. It's up to them to keep the tradition alive.
Thanks for that great story, Kate. We'll be right back.